Hello, folks. Today we're going to discuss a very important question, a question that has troubled mankind for ages. There have been contenders for the best question ever, like will Iron Man ever return to the Marvel universe? But I know you're not worried about such questions in next couple of weeks or so. Um, the reason this question is so important is because, if people did the reading right, then they wouldn't be asking this question, to be very honest. But get this question a lot as a teacher from students. Should I look at the passage first, or should I look at the questions first and then go back to the passage? And the reason this question's asked in the very first place is because it kind of betrays a sense of a lack of confidence in your memory or in your ability to read. Because if you can read well, and if you know that you're going to understand whatever you're going to read, you wouldn't ask the question as to whether you should look at the questions first, right? The age old logic for people believing that there is a possibility that you should read the questions before the passage is that when you're looking at the passage, you will at least remember what kind of questions are going to come later, and therefore you're going to read certain portions better. That's only logical reason. Okay, as a teacher, I would never understand that logic. But at the end of the day, we have to, times change, and we're going to have a shorter duration verbal section this time in CAT. And as times change, people would want to try out different things. I'm all for trying out whatever suits you. So since you're giving so many mocks, you might as well try doing this and that both. Let's look at some of the myths. Okay, the reason I want to discuss the myths first is because I do not want most of you guys to fall for something that works for someone else. Okay, that's a major problem in a lot of competitive exams, that something works for somebody and then you think you're going to do the same thing, it'll work for you. The funny paradox about reading questions first is that the person who needs to do it the least is generally the guy who benefits the most when looking at the questions first. Okay, or for example, the people like me who are very comfortable reading the passage first don't care about looking at the questions, knowing that I can summarize the passage well in my head, I can remember 500 words and the logical flow. Okay, and therefore whenever the questions come, I can remember which part of the passage that information was coming from, and then go straight away to that part and probably find in the vicinity of start reading in the vicinity of where I think I would find the something related to the question. But I would benefit the most from the questions because I can also remember what's there in the questions. Okay, a little later in this video, I'll also discuss what you should look for in a question if you want to look at the question. Well, before that, let's quickly go through the myths. Okay, number one, it helps one read select portions of passage and avoid unnecessary bits. Okay, please do not ever entertain this. Okay, there is nothing called important part of a passage and not so important part of the passage for the first reading. Yes, when you read once, you will learn that some portions are important, some portions are just elaborations. So you read them faster, you breeze through them, you do all of that. Yes, but without reading, there's no way, there's no escape for you as far as reading the 500 or 525 words of a passage completely at least once. Okay, at best you can avoid reading articles A and the, you could jump over the proper nouns and those long introductions saying so and so professor from so and so university from so and so country. That part you can jump over. You can leave out the statistics, numbers and all of that. That's the best you can do. But otherwise, there's no way you can skip even one word, because you never know what information is hidden there. Once you read it, or once you're reading midway through the sentence, you know that's an elaboration sentence, you can go a little faster, you can breeze past it, but you never skip entire pieces of information. Okay, so if you know that there's a question being asked about something which is there in the second paragraph, doesn't mean that the first para is not important or the third para is not important. Okay, the funny thing about reading comprehension is that the same keyword could be discussed in multiple tones across different paragraphs. So you may read about it in the second paragraph, and then third paragraph might change your opinion on the same thing. And then there could be a fourth paragraph which could have something else, and a fifth paragraph which could, the arguments could go back and forth. So you cannot really say that we can just get away with reading portions of the passage. So if someone's advising that please stay away from that, it's not going to work. It's easier for you to just read the whole thing. You'll waste less time. But if you're going to read bits and pieces, you'll spend more time trying to search for information. Okay, second, helps avoid rereading the passage if you look at the questions first. why would it help you reread, avoid reading the passage? Because you know the question, so while you're reading, you'll hit that point where you know there's a question being asked, and therefore you'll read it carefully and you'll go straight away and answer the question. Fair enough. Okay, but you have to have near photographic memory to be able to do that. Okay, and I'm not a big fan. As a question setter myself, I could tell you one thing, okay, that questions that generally play around with the minds of people who are giving the test. The simple reason that the option that feels like the answer generally will feel like an answer, because you'll see a lot of keywords from the passage in that particular option, but all it takes is a small tweak to make the right answer the wrong answer. Okay, so it'll have a lot of keywords from the passage or from or in and around the area that you're looking for, and yet the meaning will be something else, and that will not be the right answer, and the right answer will have unfamiliar words and will tend to not resonate with you, but will end up being the right answer because it's synonyms of the phrases that are being used in the passage. So the questions that is constantly do that to you. Okay, so you will have to almost always recheck the information. So you know that the answer is there in the second paragraph, you remember most of it, you can almost guess that yeah, B is the answer because I've read it, but still go back and check if you're reading the right thing, because all it takes is a small tweak, one word here or there changes the meaning of the entire sentence. Sometimes punctuation itself changes the meaning of the sentence. Okay, so do not get into the bad habit of answering from memory. Yes, don't want to be penny wise pound foolish and say, hey, why waste another 15-20 seconds trying to confirm. Always confirm your answer. Okay, one check at least to make sure that what you're reading is what you found there, and you're not answering from memory, because your memory will not serve you right under pressure. Third, it helps your accuracy by remembering focused content better. Why I'm going to call this a myth is partly I've explained it, right? That you will not remember. Once you look at 3 or 4 similar options, your memory kind of deceives you, because almost all options look similar and there's just one word or two words different here and there, right? So there's no way you can just remember the passage, even though you know that the answer to question number 1 is there in the second paragraph. There's no way you can read once and then go and answer that question. You have to go back and forth. It will happen, especially in a difficult paper. It will happen even more so, because the options will be so close that you'll have to see what's the difference between the two close options and come back and double check. Sometimes you'll have to check multiple times, read the same sentence. You know that the answer is there hidden in plain sight in that one sentence, but you'll still have to read it multiple times to understand what that sentence is trying to say. Okay, so sometimes the question setter himself or herself gives it out to you, saying second paragraph, first sentence, what does the author said this, what does it mean? So you don't even have to go search. But even then people get the question wrong, the answer wrong. Why do you think it's the case? Because some sentences are hard to comprehend. Okay, so trying to believing that just reading the questions is going to solve your problems is not true. Okay, these are the myths. Okay, these are the reasons why people who want to read the questions first, because they want to save time. They don't want to waste time searching for the information again. You look at a question and then you don't remember whether it's in the first paragraph, second paragraph, or third paragraph. So you think that if you look at the question first and when you're reading it itself, you'll remember. Okay, it's not a bad idea. It works sometimes, but here's the problem, right? You cannot remember the exact content of the question when you're reading, number one. Okay, so let's say you went to the questions, you looked at the questions first, right? And then you went to the passage. When you're reading the passage and trying to focus on the information in the passage, remembering the exact question is virtually impossible. You're going to remember like bits and pieces of it. So please don't overdo it. Don't read the options, read the question 2 or 3 times trying to memorize the question. It's not going to work, because the passage itself is generally dense enough and has too many ideas. So your comprehension of the passage will get affected if you are trying to look for the answer to a particular question. The way you read the passage will change completely. Okay, so there is a problem with that. Okay, that's one thing. It's you won't remember the entire content of the question itself. It's like one long sentence, 4 or 5 long sentences. Think of it this way again, practically. Okay, you click on one question and then click on the next question, you click on the next question. You end up wasting valuable time, probably around 50 seconds, 45 seconds. If it's a 5-question passage, you probably end up spending at least 40 seconds at least, which you could use if you are someone who reads at even say 200 words per minute. You can finish the passage itself in about 2.5-3 minutes. So imagine losing out 40 seconds, 45 seconds just because you're reading the questions. Can you justify it by saving the time in searching? You have to still come and double check and read anyway, right? Anyway, the second thing is, second part, and this most important part is that the modern day passages are not like the reading comprehension passages of the yesteryear. Okay, now 20 years back things were a little different, but GMAT has kind of changed the way reading comprehension passages are asked, because what GMAT did was bring in arguments into passages and bring in questions which are critical reasoning heavy. And then we're seeing that in the Indian B school exams as well. Now critical reasoning becomes important. Yes, sometimes in IFT you will see long passages and you'll see direct questions. You have to just look for the information there. You can look at the questions first. Okay, varies from B school exam to B school exam. You can look at the previous year's papers and see whether the questions are direct or not. But at least as far as CAT's concerned, and in the last few years, and GMAT, definitely the passage is not huge, but the questions are critical reasoning heavy. So it's not just lookup based. You can't just see the question and then be assured that you'll find the answer. Okay, so you're looking at 4 questions. You can be pretty goddamn sure that at least 2 questions are not lookup based. That's not going to happen. Okay, the idea that there is a question on a particular para may interfere with your understanding of the para, which I mentioned already. Point number 3. It's that when you're reading a passage, you're trying to frame an idea in your head, an argument in your head, right? You're trying to figure out how the flow of thoughts is going on in the passage. You're trying to summarize in your head. Okay, para 1 was about these keywords, para 2 was about these keywords, para 3 was about these keywords. You're trying to do all of this. But if you have a question, or if you have not one, again, you're trying to hold 2 or 3 or 4 questions right in your head, what you're going to do is you'll do match the following. You'll end up doing match the following. Okay, where is my questions answer? Where's my questions? The moment you do that, part of your RAM gets busy, and what you should be understanding, your complete resources are not committed to understanding the passage. And sometimes with all your resources, passage is difficult to understand. Imagine working at only half the capacity, half your RAM. Okay, it could be tricky. The last thing you want is to have to read the passage twice, and that's kind of defeating the whole purpose of whatever you're trying to do when you're looking at the questions first, right? Point 4, RC passages are argument based, using ideas from across the passage. Paras can rarely be singled out for information. Okay, this is my single biggest argument as to why your reading should not be question centric. Okay, if you're trying to read as if you're trying to find the answer to a particular question, you're not going to succeed. Your accuracy will come down. Okay, whether you're good, whether you're bad, doesn't matter. It will come down for the simple reason that passages are arguments which are based on a certain tone. The author has a certain agenda while trying to present that information to you. The author has a certain structure in the way the information is built, which means you have to track that agenda from the first word to the last word. Okay, track that flow. If you're distracted by your questions and you're trying to find the answers to those questions, you will miss out on the inflection points, the contrast markers, the tone changes, the sarcasm which could be there sometimes, the humor which could be there sometimes. Okay, the author's contradictions which come in sometimes. The author could confuse you by giving you 2 contradictory pieces of information from 2 different people or 2 different kinds of remarks. All these things are constantly varying across the passage. You need all your focus on the content, right? But if you're trying to hold on to a question then match, you're going to miss out the tonal changes and inflection points, right? And 5th one needs to know what to look for while looking at the questions first, obviously. If you still want to look at the questions, I'll tell you what to look for in the next slide. But this is what I want you to remember. If I go to the next slide, and I'll tell you what to look at the question. If this is what I want you to remember, number 1, you need confidence, and it's better if you read the passage without worrying about the fact that there are questions that are going to come later. If you understand the passage well, which should be your primary focus always in reading comprehension, you understand the essence of it or the gist of it, no matter what the question is, you'll be able to answer it. But if you're not somebody who can read a passage and understand it, looking at the questions is not going to give you the answers anyway. It's not going to save time anyway. You'll get confused in the options. You understand the difference between the two? Now, what is it that you should look for in the questions? Let's say you're going to look at the, you made up your mind that you want to look at the questions first and then come to the passage, because that gives you a sense of sense of at least an anchor point or something to look for in the passage or something to base your reading on. Fair enough. If we want to do that, check if the question is keyword based. Okay, if yes, what is the keyword? Meaning every question the two types of questions obviously in our reading comprehension. There are direct questions and indirect questions. Direct questions are questions where the answer will be there somewhere in the passage. Indirect question is something where the answer will not be directly given in the passage. Instead, the answer will be something that you have to derive. It could be an inference question, a question where new examples are given and to figure out it fits with the argument, strengthens the argument, weakens the argument, or fits with the theory, that a particular theory given in the passage. Okay, all these are indirect questions. So it's not like you can look up in the passage for information. At best, the question would give you the location and say second paragraph or third paragraph, isn't it? It's not going to help you anyway, right? Or except for reading the second paragraph a little slower than other questions. How is it going to help you if there are no keywords? So the thing you need to look for is always ask yourself, is the question revolving around a keyword? Is there a word presented in the question, some keyword? Okay, remember that keyword. Don't worry about the question, just remember the keywords, that when you hit it in the passage, you know that you make a mark in your head that, okay, second paragraph I hit the keyword. So you can come back later, and once you read the passage, you understand the passage better, then you go to the question, you'll understand the question better again, compared to reading it in the first time and you didn't even know what was in the passage. You can come back. So remember the keyword. It's easier to hold on to the keyword than the entire length of the question. No point ever reading options. Okay, so even if you're looking at questions first, please don't look at the options except for one glance, where you check whether the option sentences are long or short. Okay, a passage where the option sentences are shorter makes your life a little easier. Okay, but the passage where the questions are long and the options are all consistently long, the difficulty of the passage goes up one notch, from a 3.5 out of 5 to probably go to 4, if the options on an average are about 50 to 60 words, all 4 options put together, instead of just say 10 words or 15 words, if 3 3 4 4 words in each option. You understand the difference, right? That is information that's vital for you, because in one glance you can decide whether you need to read a lot or you need to read a little less, because the option length itself will add a lot of content to whatever you have to read, isn't it? Whatever you have to reread, sometimes you reread the options, sometimes you have to read it multiple times, two close options, you end up reading the same sentence 3 times or 4 times. So without even you're knowing it, you're going to lose a lot of information there. So that you could glance, but otherwise don't read the options per se when you haven't yet read the passage. Okay, look at the questions if you want. Look at the keyword. Is there a keyword? Number 1. Number 2, how many CR based questions does the passage have? The indirect questions generally, how many are there? Like out of 4, if there are 3 which are CR based, it's going to be a difficult passage. Okay, it's going to be a difficult passage, not in terms of reading. Again, that's a different monster altogether. The density of the passage, the length of sentences in the passage, what kind of diction the author has used in the passage, the familiarity of the topic of the passage. These all decide the difficulty of the reading material of the passage. We're not talking about that. Talking about difficulty in scoring marks of the passage generally depends on the type of questions. I could give you a very easy reading material but very difficult questions. Okay, I could give you very dense reading material but give you a slightly easier questions. Okay, so both are possible. So if the more CR based questions, the passage is going to be tricky, because you have to understand the nuances of the argument in the passage, otherwise you'll miss out on the CR questions. The critical reasoning questions generally will play around with your understanding, your assumptions, your how did you spot the assumption, did you spot the inference, did you spot the right arguments? All these things are important. So when you're if all you're looking at the questions first, look at how many of the questions are CR based questions, critical reasoning based questions. How many have keywords? How many option heavy questions does the passage have? Now, what is the meaning of option heavy questions? The question stem itself does not give you any information. For example, a question like which of the following can be inferred from the passage? What's the point of reading that question, right? It's not going to give you anything till you read the passage, complete passage, until you understand the passage. You won't know whether this is an easy question or a difficult question. It's an option heavy question, because till you read all the 4 options, you will not know how difficult that question is. Okay, it's always bad news. If a passage has even 2 option heavy questions, it's already going to be tricky for you, because it's going to eat up some time. You have to read the passage faster. So if you're going to look at the questions first, these are things you need to observe, right? Option heavy questions, till you read the passage, you won't understand the options. Till you understand the options, you won't understand the difficulty of the question, whether you should attempt it or not attempt it. Okay, so check out for that. Do any of the questions have locations? Location specific questions. 3rd para of the passage, 5th para of the passage, end of the passage, beginning of the passage. The question is giving away the location, makes your life easier. If out of 4 questions, okay, sometimes you'll notice that there's a passage where in all the questions, 4 or 5 or 3 questions, how many the questions are, either has a keyword or has the location, or the keyword itself is something that's glaring. Okay, some proper noun is used. It's some person's name is given in the question. Very easy to find the proper noun, isn't it? So if the proper nouns and the proper nouns in the question, those questions are easy to deal with. So that's one more thing you want to keep in your mind. So it's very not so difficult if you are street smart, if you've done your practice well, not so difficult for you to gauge the difficulty level of a particular passage by looking at the questions first. But you don't get stuck in the questions. So be a little smart about it. One glance at each of the questions will roughly tell you all these pieces of information. Number one, how many are keyword based, how many are critical reasoning based, how many option heavy based questions, do the questions have locations given, are the options long or short? Okay, these are the things you need to look for when you're looking at questions first. Now finally, if you ask me, okay, should I do the passage first or should I do the questions first? Okay, if you are someone with a good memory, okay, and someone who can summarize a passage well, this is the main question you have to ask for yourself very honestly. Nobody else can really help you. I know a lot of people give you shortcuts. I'm like, good for them, good for you, if it helps, works for you, but at least I don't have any such miracle pills. But ask yourself a very honest question, which is, if I read a paragraph, can I summarize the paragraph into 2 or 3 keywords? Okay, can I do that? If I can do that, it means I can remember the whole passage in the form of 15 to 20 words. Okay, 3-4 words for the first para, 3-4 words for the second para, 3-4 words for the third paragraph, 3-4 words for the fourth paragraph, 3-4 words for the fifth paragraph. Generally, these words are the keywords around which the paragraph revolves. Every paragraph revolves around 2 or 3 keywords, generally nouns if you're good with grammar, very rarely a verb, but you're looking for nouns and verbs mostly, but mostly nouns, but important nouns, okay, around which the whole paragraph evolves. You're going to summarize a particular paragraph in the form of 2 or 3 keywords using those key. It's like, think of it like a database, right? In a database there's a key, right? Using the key you'll pull out the rest of the row. The same logic. If I give you that keyword, you ask other questions around that keyword, you ask other important questions to the keyword, you get the rest of the paragraph. Your brain registers all that information, but need to remember how to, your brain will remember the idea, whatever is read, but can't remember all the 500 words. So you give your brain 5 or 10 words to remember. But once I give you that word, you'll obviously be able to pull out the rest of the information anyway, because you're all smart people. When you read, you remember the information. It's just that it's very difficult to retrieve it. Clear? So if you can summarize well, if you're capable of doing that, you do not have to worry about the questions, okay? Because first para is about this, second para is about this, third para is about this, fourth para is about this, fifth para is about this. So if you see the keyword also, you'll know immediately in your head. You will know if it's a keyword based question. Also, you'll know in your head, okay, where can I place this keyword? This keyword came in the last paragraph or the first paragraph. You should be able to do that. That will save you the initial 30 to 40 seconds that you spend on looking at the questions first. Especially people who are consistently getting 90 to 95% and above don't have to worry about looking at the questions first, to be honest. But if you feel comfortable that way, okay, again, what you feel comfortable is what works for you, okay? So nobody should tell you don't do this or don't do that. So if you feel comfortable looking at the questions, it gives you a sense of starting up into the passage. If you really think, give one glance at the passage in like 5-10 seconds, you will know some keywords. You will know whether the paragraphs are uniformly spaced or they are like smaller paragraphs are always easier to read. For example, same 500 words, 3 paragraphs more difficult to read than 6 paragraphs or 8 paragraphs. Okay, smaller paragraphs easier to summarize, easier to understand, easier to remember. So in a 5-second glance, you can pretty much tell what the passage subject is. Are there big heavy keywords? Are there long sentences? Okay, and paragraphs, are they uniform or not uniform? Another 15 to 20 seconds, 30 seconds, you can look at the questions quickly. Next. You're clicking on the questions. You will know what kind of questions are there. Okay. This will help you decide whether you want to do the passage or not do the passage. This is for people who want to leave out one passage. If you're somebody who wants to score 99 percentile and above, you just put your head down, read the passage. Okay, because you have to answer every question anyway. If you want to score 99 percentile, you have to answer a lot of questions. Okay, I mean 80% at least items have to be there, even in a difficult paper. If you want to score 99 percentile and above, generally, okay, you'll be slowed down by the difficulty of the question itself, and you'll have to leave some questions anyway. Okay, so you don't have to take the decision. The question itself will be impossible to solve. Just leave it and move on. But otherwise, it helps to put down your head, read the passage, understand the argument, summarize. If you're somebody who cannot summarize a passage, okay, you're reading a passage and you feel there are just too many words in the passage, and then you're not able to get a hold on the argument of the passage, you'll probably benefit by looking at the questions first a little bit. but only if you're focusing on the keywords. You cannot spend 1.5 minutes on the questions again, okay, because that's valuable time you could have used to read the passage. So you spend about 15, 20 seconds, 30 seconds at max, search for the keywords. That will also help you, because if you're somebody who's not capable of summarizing a passage or understanding the argument in the passage, you are not going to be able to solve the critical reasoning heavy questions anyway. So it helps to know how many critical reasoning questions are there in the passage and how many direct questions are there in the passage. So if there are 3 critical reasoning questions in the passage, you might as well leave the passage and move on to the next one. But if you say 3 direct questions are there and you know what are the keywords, then you keep them in your head, read the passage. You still have to read the whole passage. Don't get excited if you see the keyword in the second paragraph and say, hey, I found the keyword, so let me answer this question. Don't do that. Read the whole passage only, then go back to answering it. Don't answer while you're still just looking for it. I mean, because things keep changing. You do not know when you're reading the second paragraph whether that keyword occurs again in the third paragraph or the fourth paragraph, whether there are going to be new arguments or not. But just make a mental note, okay? So if you're really fast reader, again, if somebody who's reading at 250, 275, 300 words, 275 words per minute, it's a very good reading speed, okay? If you can read at that pace, then looking at the questions will help you do less searching later, okay? So you can look at the questions, you can afford to do that because you read the passage fast anyway, okay? So where other people are taking 3 minutes to read the passage, you probably take only 2 minutes to read the passage. So you're already saving some time. So might as well look at the questions first, so that you know when you're reading the keyword that this is where a question occurs. You'll read it a little more carefully. Helps you because you slow down there and you grasp the information, come back a second time and read, your accuracy will improve, okay? So hopefully you found one of the categories to which you belong to, and you can use it to your benefit, okay? But the key is not in the questions. In a reading comprehension math is what you have to be able to understand. That's why there are people who never give any time to verbal and still end up scoring 98, 99 percentiles, because they're just good readers. Generally people who read novels and newspapers all through their life, and read a lot, and speak and think a lot in English, okay? So they don't really need to practice a lot of question answering and still do well in reading comprehension. That's the proof, okay, that reading comprehension is a lot about reading, okay? Reading and comprehending the questions. If you understand the passage, I could ask any of the 15, 20 possible questions and still be able to answer the questions, okay? So if your focus is on reading the question to answer a question, then you'll almost always misunderstand the passage, okay? And hopefully that makes sense to you. If you have any other specific issues that you want to discuss, please leave a comment. I'll try to address a few of them if time permits, okay? Until next time, peace out.